Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I am Jahid and today I am going to discuss about what I have learned from the chapter which I was given, that was chapter 4 uh, from the consumer behavior book of Michael R. Solomon, and that chapter was about learning and memory. That was the heading, and this chapter especially focuses on the way we mainly store information that we can see, understand or listen, and how we answer our existing knowledge about the world during our learning process. And after reading through the chapter, I have understand several things, and I can say that this chapter is about highlighting on several topics about our learning and memory. So as this chapter is all about consumers learning and their memory related outcomes, so in few slides I will describe about the learning process and the memory gathering of the R. And in my first slide I have focused on theories of learning. Here you can see that two theories of learning: behavioral learning theories and cognitive learning theories. So behavioral learning theories focuses on stimulus response connection, and behavioral learning theory focuses on the idea that we learn from our relation with environment and interaction with the environment. And also this theory actually says that we learn from environment, and environment enhances or drives our behavior. It also says that I have understand that it also says that inherited factor have very little influence on it, so it is very little influenced by the inherited factors. And for cognitive theories focuses on consumers as problem solvers who learn when they observe relationships, and cognitive means what we learn from our knowledge. So cognitive theories focus on consumers as problem solvers who learn when they observe the relationships. So the through cognitive theories, the consumers solve their problems by using the past information or past knowledge about the product or service. So cognitive learning theory is known as CLT, which is a short form of cognitive learning theories, and it is about understanding how human mind works with pupils learning. And also I can say that cognitive theory basically depends on the knowledge we gathered, what I have said earlier in this slide section. And this theory focuses in the information which is processed by the brain, and also through this theory we can learn by internal processing of information inside our brain. And according to conditioning learning, you can see in this figure there is stimulus, consumer and response, and also there is a box which is pictured. And so learning is a process of change that occurs because of condition which cause a reaction. So it comes as a condition and analyzed by the information or experience which is gathered inside our brain, and the outcomes is the result. So result or response come as outcome, and this response come by analyzing the information inside our brain or past experience inside our brain. So the stimulus go inside our brain, and after analyzing the stimulus, response comes. So you think that mind is a black box. We approach the mind as a black box and emphasize the observable aspects of the behavior. So the observation is done by the things that go into the box, and things come out from the box as response. So I can shortly say that stimulus go inside our mind, which is a black box, and after analyzing the things, response come as a outcome. So that was conditioning result of learning. And you can see that behavioral learning theories have two types. One is classical conditioning and another one is instrumental conditioning. So at first we have to know that what is classical conditioning. Classical conditioning is also known as respondent conditioning. So it was first described by Russian psychologist named Ivan Pavlov, and it involves placing a neutral signal before a reflex, and also it focuses on automatic behaviors. So classical conditioning focuses on automatic behaviors for us, and in this conditioning two stimulus are linked together to produce a new learned response to a person. And as example, I can say that, think that a father is bringing a box of popcorn whenever he wants to watch a movie with his child at night. So that inside that father child, it is memorized that when his father will bring a box of popcorn, then he will watch a movie with his father that night. So the child become excited by thinking that and understanding that the popcorn box is linked with watching movie. So this happened because that child has associated popcorn with an incident of watching a new movie with his father. So this is called classical conditioning. And also another example, a father is wearing a football jersey whenever he wants to go to play to the football field with his child. So this child is associating a football jersey with a incidence of going to the football field to play football with his father. So that was the example of classical conditioning. And next come instrumental conditioning. So instrumental conditioning was first described by B.F. Skinner, who was an American psychologist, and it involves applying reinforcement or punishment after a behavior. That means after observing the condition, people may reinforce or punish. It also focuses on strengthening or weakening voluntary behavior. That means it can strengthen or weakening volunteers' behaviors, our behaviors, consumers' behaviors, and it is called instrumental conditioning because to make the responses, learners provide the instrument by which a problem is solved. That means instrumental conditioning is something through that using these instruments, the learners provide the needed things or memories that can solve a problem. That can be response or that can be experience or anything. It also views consumers as an active participant of learning. And as an example of instrumental conditioning, I can give an example that one dog owner have made a mindset that he will ring a bell, and after that his dog will run to him and get food. So after few times the dog get used with that his owner will ring a bell and he will get a food by reaching to his owner. But after some times, if the owner ring a bell but after the dog reaches to him, he don't give him the food, still the dog will run to the owner. But through this, the owner can make have good habit of for the dog to wait and sit there. So by using this method, the owner is making the good habit of sitting and staying for the dog. So it was the instrumental conditioning. And In the next slide, I will describe more about these two types of conditioning and the application and the issues which are linked with the conditioning. Here comes my next slide, and in this slide I will describe about some issues about classical conditioning and instrumental conditioning. You can see that there is a chart of classical conditioning components, and here is three parts: unconditioned stimulus, conditioned stimulus, and conditioned response. And unconditioned stimulus happens by automatically or by any without any intention or any condition, which happens naturally, and this response takes place without any prior learning. And unconditioned stimulus is somewhat related with conditioned stimulus and conditioned responses. Through example I can give the better idea about these conditions, and think that we all know that thirst comes from inside, and thirst comes from some environmental or physical factors. That means when you are working or running or playing sports, or you are in heat, you feel thirstiness. That means it happens automatically when you are in heat or playing sports. But this is an unconditioned stimulus. So heat and sports are unconditioned stimulus here. But here comes a conditioned stimulus, Coke or cold drinks. Over time, conditioned stimulus becomes a signal for the arrival of the unconditional stimulus for the brain. And whenever you see a picture of a cold drinks, that can be Coke or any other cold drinks, you feel thirsty without any environmental or physical factor. You feel thirsty. That's conditional stimulus connected with unconditional stimulus. That means thus we don't only have Coke when we are thirsty, but we feel thirsty when we see the picture of a Coke. And here you can also see that marketing application of classical conditioning. Here is repetition, stimulus generalization, and stimulus discrimination. So repetition increases the bonds that connect a conditioned stimuli and unconditioned stimuli. And here stimulus generalization occurs when stimulus that is similar to an already conditioned stimulus begins to produce the same responses as original stimulus does. For example, Ivan Pavlov conditioned dogs to salivate using the sound of a bell and food powder stimulus. And stimulus discrimination occurs when the organism learns to differentiate between conditional stimuli and other similar stimuli. And you can here see how instrumental conditioning also. How does instrumental conditioning occurs? Through positive enforcement, negative enforcement, and punishment. An example of positive reinforcement is giving a child a treat when he or she is polite. That means candy is coming because of positive impact of politeness. When a child is polite or making a good behavior, you are giving him or her a candy. Negative enforcement example can be you are taking a antacid tablet before taking a spicy food. That means that there can be a negative result after taking a spicy food. That's why you are taking antacid tablet. And the example of punishment is a person eats a spoiled food and gets a bad taste in his or her mouth. That means here bad taste is punishment. And you can see the marketing application of instrumental conditioning: social marketing, brand loyalty, and employment performance. So in next slide I will describe more. This one is my third slide, and this slide is about cognitive learning theories. Here you can see the observational learning process, which I have highlighted in this sector. Cognitive learning theory is about understanding how the human mind works while people learn. And one of the major components of social cognitive learn theory is observational learning. It is the process of learning others' desirable or undesirable behaviors through observation. And observational learning teaches people both positive and negative behaviors, of course. So both positive and negative outcomes come from observational learning. To learn an observational learning, we must observe or pay attention to something in the environment. So here I have highlighted the attention section first. Second comes retention. Observers must not only recognize the observed behavior but also remember it later sometime. That is called retention. And next comes production process, and after that comes motivation. So attention and retention will not work without the lack of motivation. If you have motivation, then attention and retention will work. And next comes observational learning. Observational learning is the process of learning by watching the behaviors of others. That means the targeted behaviors is being watched, memorized, or copied. And in this slide you can also see the marketing application of cognitive learning theories. These are consumer socialization. That means you have to socialize the consumers, or parents or others influence. You can be influenced by your parents or others or your friends or family members. You can motivated by TV or web. And cognitive development message, you can marketing application also focus on cognitive development message. So in my next slide I will describe about the memory part. In this slide I will describe about the memory part of the chapter, what I have learned. And at first I will highlight on memory system. Here you can see three memory systems: sensory memory, short-term memory, and of course long-term memory. Sensory memory is one of several memory types that make up your ability to process and or recall what you see. And that means we keep the incidents what we saw in past inside our brain and recall that when it needs. That is called sensory memory. And second is short-term memory. Short-term memory is the information that a person is currently thinking about or taking or aware of that memory. It is also called primary or active memory. As example, short-term memory can include that where you have parked your car in the morning, or what you have taken in your lunch or dinner. And also it can be how was your experience about a product or service that you have used that day. And long-term memory actually memorize long-term memories are type of relatively lasting memories that last for a long time. As example, which working skills you have learned from your first job. And in this slide I also have highlighted about marketing power of nostalgia. And you all are well, I think you all are well known about nostalgia. What is nostalgia? Nostalgia is a desire to return an earlier time of life. An example of nostalgia can be going back to the college days by memorizing it, because your college days memories keeps inside us your memory after a long time also. So through a nostalgia you can go back to your college days by memorizing that time. And for a product or service that can happen also. You can remember any brand which have used different pattern, packaging, style or design in past time or long ago back. And our association with a specific brands are stored in our long-term memory. When we are shopping for product or services, we tend to make several decisions within seconds based on a brand by using our memory or nostalgia. And retro brand is something that revival or relaunch of a product or a service brand from a prior historical period. As example, I can give that Argentina national team plays football. So in 2022 World Cup, Argentina have decided to play with the jersey which will follow the design of 1986 World Cup, which was owned by Maradona, by the memory of legend Maradona. So Argentina team football team is using a retro kit to memorize Maradona from past, and they will represent this kit in future World Cup. So it's a example of retro band. In next slide I will describe some more parts about memory. This slide is also about memory, and in this slide you can see that I have highlighted that how is the external inputs inside our memory and how it occurs. That means encoding is the act of getting information into our memory system through automatic or effortful processing. And memory in second, storage. Memory storage is the process by which the brain can store facts or events so that they can be helpful in the future. And memory retrieval is the process of remembering information stored in our memory about a long time ago. That means a long-term memory. So you can see that retrieving memories is pioneer branding, follower branding, and spacing effect. Memory encodes are sensory meaning, semantic meaning, episodic memories, and narrative. And also memory stores. Here you can see that spreading activations are brand specification, ad specification, brand identification, product category, and evaluate reaction. Also there is a label knowledge. These are That was all from the learning and memory chapter about my understandings and what I have learned from the chapter. So that's all for today, and assalamu alaikum.